This video is brought to you by Sporlan, quality, integrity, and tradition.
Well, the customer is complaining that all of their walk-ins, the walk-in freezer, the walk-in cooler, and the beer walk-in are not working. This is our first real big heat wave, like consistent heat wave this week, and this customer doesn't do routine maintenance. So how much you want to bet we're just off on high head pressure? And as we kind of pan over here, can't help but ignore the AC, plugged solid, and yeah, nice and dirty. Metal mesh filters completely plugged up. Happy Sunday. I never would have thought I'd be thankful to have a net gator in my van. I thought we were done with those things, but I'm moving all these leaves and this dust, and I'm using it to keep the crap out of my mouth. You can see this stuff is just horrible. So I'm trying to get this all away from the ACs, and then I'll tell the customer to get someone up here and clean it all up. I'm gonna get this away, and then we're gonna rinse everything off. Who'd have thought I'd be doing gardening at a restaurant on a Sunday, right? I don't want to be here on a Sunday, and I'm frustrated, but I don't express that to the customer because the customer can very easily call someone else. So I feel that it's okay for me to be frustrated as long as I keep it to myself. I can vent it to you because you all are watching this, and you can understand that there is frustrations. You know, this customer doesn't do routine maintenance. I'm out here on a Sunday on my day off cleaning it, but I'm also thankful that I have the work, okay? In fact, I got a little bit too much work right now. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start by pre-rinsing, getting the bulk of the big stuff off, okay? Once we get the big stuff off of all the coils, then I'll get the coil cleaner out and we'll start cleaning. Now, this is a tube and fin condenser. That is a microchannel condenser. We can't wash the microchannel with the blue cleaner, but we can wash the tube and fin ones with the blue cleaner. So, just gonna get pre-rinse, get it broken down, get the coil nice and wet, and then we'll get the cleaner applied. For the microchannel condenser, we're gonna use the yellow Venom pack from Refrigeration Technology. So I'm just pre-rinsing right now. There we go. And then now the cleaner's being applied. Now this is completely microchannel safe. So you just let the cleaner sit there, make sure it penetrates, and then just let it sit for a few minutes, and then we'll give it a rinse. All right, you can't use the blue cleaners on the microchannel condensers because they will etch the coil, eat away at it, and cause massive problems. So just gonna let this stuff, we're doing this one first so that way I can use the blue cleaner for everything else, even the ACs. I'm gonna do a quick rinse on all the ACs too since I'm here, because I'm so busy right now I don't have time to come back unless it's absolutely necessary. So while it sucks that I'm here on a Sunday, might as well just get it done and suck it up because I'm short-staffed and I'd be the person to come back anyways. So for everything else, we're gonna use the blue Gardner cleaner. This is the strongest cleaner they have. That will deteriorate the coils if you leave it on though. So you don't wanna leave this stuff sitting on. You wanna mix it right. If you use that container, you can get 8 gallons out of it. So using their foam gun set on A, which is the least concentration, we're gonna apply it to all the other ones. Now, the microchannel safe cleaner, the yellow stuff, you can leave it on. It's just a proprietary mix of soap. Excuse me, that dust is getting to me. But the blue cleaner, you want to rinse off immediately. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy, like taking the fan motors out and stuff on these, because I believe that more or less it was just surface, you know, lint and pollen from all these trees is what it is. So this guy, I'm thinking, was off on high head pressure because it wasn't running, so, and it has a manual reset pressure control. So once I rinse this out really good, and we'll turn this guy back on. Funny, when I pulled up, they had a sign on the door saying no draft beer because the beer cooler was down. And then the walk-in cooler was at 60 degrees too, and then the walk-in freezer was at like 25 degrees. And then they don't even know it, but they got multiple ACs because they have multiple circuits. They all had high pressure codes and stuff, so we're gonna rinse everything. We'll do a quick one from the inside, make sure it's... Oh, it looks like condenser fan motor's locked up too on this guy. Look at that. So yeah, we will be taking that out. But make sure it's clean from here. Looks good. So I don't see any problems there. I always like to, when you can, rinse out the condenser fan motor area too. You know, if possible. But you always want to watch out because like the walk-in freezer compressor is missing the terminal cover, so you don't want to rinse it off with the terminal cover missing. So I'm just going to keep on going down the line. Get this guy rinsed out. These guys, you got to be really careful because it goes right through the microchannel condenser. So you can get the motors really, really wet. So you just want to kind of go at a downward angle and then only go straight through where the motors are not at. Like that's a good spot to go straight through. But yeah, you can see like the pile of leaves there and then the pile of leaves there. They got tons of leaves everywhere. They got to get these cleaned up or these are all just going to suck back up on this condenser. Oh, what a day. So I shut off the AC and we're doing the same thing. We're just going and rinsing the big chunks off. And then once we get the big chunks off, we'll do it on the inside and the outside. You can see the stuff all coming out. We'll put some cleaner on it. Now, I'm not gonna rip this AC apart. We're not gonna do, you know, cleaning from the inside, outside, all that stuff, because don't really have time to do that today. But I'm gonna at least get them clean to where they're not going off on high pressure anymore. And then I'll talk to the customer. I've asked them, you know, they've asked, I've been at locations, several of their locations, and I brought up the fact that a lot of the condensers are dirty, and they have a filter changing company that cleans their coils for them too. And they were like, yeah, well, they're coming. Well, I keep getting calls, you know, so it's like, I'm not playing these games anymore. We're just cleaning it, you know, because the filter changing guys, I mean, I'm not even going to do like a crazy good job today, and the filter changing guys don't even do half the job that I'm going to do today. So again, this is going to save me some service calls this upcoming week. It's just crazy right now. So we get the big stuff off. Once you get the big stuff off, then penetrate the coil with the water. Once we do that, then we'll apply some cleaner, and then we'll rinse the inside too. Some muddiness that's coming out of here, just nasty goo. Kind of like the other ones though, it's more surface stuff than really deep penetration. So we'll just make sure we rinse off all the cleaner. And then I already got cleaner on the inside too. So I'm doing one AC at a time. I'm gonna go down in a minute, turn the walk-in cooler back on. I just wanted it to dry off for a minute, and then I'll get a condenser fan motor for the beer walk-in, and we'll get that swapped out. And then they also have a bad evaporator fan motor for the walk-in freezer. Talk about waiting until the last minute, right? So I'll get that taken care of today too. So I simply just spun this one, and I can tell that the motor's locked up. It's got bad bearings in it. So I've got a 9721 we're gonna put on that. That's a universal motor. I have one last 1126, which is a 208. That's the perfect motor, but I actually need that for the evaporator on the walk-in freezer. I don't ever like using these 9721s for evaporator motors because they're too big. They got too many extra wires. I can clean them up and make them look halfway decent up on the roof, but it's almost impossible down in the evaporator. So I always use the 1126s for the evaporators. So this little guy, I think I've shown this before. It's just a thumb driver. You can get them from Harbor Freight. I think I got mine from Sears or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it's a Craftsman one. I don't even know. Lowe's now, I guess. Yeah, that's where you get Craftsman tools. I just dated myself by talking about Sears, right? The younger guys are like, what's Sears? So this is perfect for getting down in here. I put a little 1/4-inch ratchet on it, and then you can just, if you need the ratchet for leverage, if not, just go to town. So we're gonna pull that motor out and get it swapped out. So I've had a lot of people say that they've had a lot of problems with their Klein multi-driver. I love mine. People have said they've lost the magnet out of theirs. Knock on wood, I haven't lost my magnet yet. I love it because, like for instance, I needed a 3/8 to pull that off, and this needs 11/32 to put these on, and you have it all on this multi-driver. I personally got mine from TrueTechTools.com. If you want to check it out, you can use my offer code BIGPICTURE. You'll get an 8% discount on checkout. But I really dig this thing. I like this version because they sell just an impact version that doesn't have the handle, but I like to be able to go interchange between the two. And the cool thing is the actual, you could just drop it out and it's impact rated. You could just snap it in your impact like that and then use it for whatever you need to too. So like I said, some people have told me that they keep losing the magnet out of it. I've had pretty good luck with mine. So all right, got the fan motor wired in. I think, let me double check, I wired the purple and white, yep. And then orange and black got wire netted together, yellow got isolated. Yeah, we're good to go. So let's turn this guy on. All right, there's that, and let's hit the high pressure control and hope that it starts. There we go. Now, question is it going in the right direction? I gotta double check that. Pretty sure it is. So the high pressure control trips at about 410 PSI. Yeah, that's going in the right direction. So we're good to go. Gonna go ahead and let this guy run. The walk-in cooler's been running for about 20 minutes. I need to go downstairs. I'm gonna let them both keep running. We'll check on them in a few minutes, check the sight glasses. I'm gonna go change an evaporative fan motor on that walk-in freezer. In the walk-in freezer, this thing may not have a bad motor because I just found a burnt connector. That connector's just completely burnt off. So let me replace that connector and see if this motor will start up and if it'll work. It looks like a fairly new motor. Walk-in freezer's running. It's got a clear sight glass. No issues there. We're gonna go down and make sure that fan motor's working right now. Walk-in cooler's running. It's got a clear sight glass. And beer walk-in is running, and it also has a clear sight glass, and it's almost down to temperature. So let's go down and see if that evaporative fan motor started back up for the walk-in freezer. Yep, started back up, so no need to change it. You know, it's funny, the customer wasn't like as concerned about the walk-in freezer, but I told him, you know, there's a problem. Look at this ice cream. It's probably been going on and off for high head pressure for the last couple days. We've had this little heat wave come through where we were hitting like 102, 103 for the last probably 4 days. And we've just been getting calls everywhere because people that aren't maintaining their equipment just overheating. All right, everything is put back together. Everything is still running its little heart away and pulling down to temp, but again, we all have clear sight glasses. I don't see the need to apply service gauges to anything. I'm not seeing any abnormal icing, no weird oil or, you know, flashing sight glasses. So more than likely just dirty condensers. I rinsed all the ACs off too. I did not go like super crazy on the ACs. Again, more of it was just surface. ACs are all running, just kind of walk the roof, make sure nothing else crazy is going on. I recommend to the customer, I went in and brought it to their attention, that we should probably come out and go through all the ACs because I'm not gonna go too crazy, but I'm sure they've got belt issues, drain issues, that kind of stuff. But that's up to them. I'm gonna go ahead and take all my stuff down. I've got a bunch downstairs too still. I gotta load it all back in my van. Pretty much had to bring everything up here. So we'll rope it all down and we'll catch you on the next one.
So this video to start was actually filmed all the way back, I believe, in May of 2022, maybe early June. But that's why as you were going through, I kept saying, yeah, we're having our first heat wave. We're having our first heat wave. That we're now into August and we've had plenty of those heat waves. So just to clarify that. You know, I say this all the time, but it happens more and more where we're getting called out to these restaurants to clean things on the weekends, you know, and it seems kind of silly, but again, even though I vent frustrations, I am thankful that they call me, right? I mean, it's really easy. They can call me or they can call someone else. They have a choice and they choose to call me. So yeah, I get frustrated, but you know, I just suck it up and be thankful that I have the work, right? And I'll be thankful for this kind of work come the wintertime too, when it slows down, right? Because we don't have a very big heating season out here in California. So, you know, just try, you know, to not freak out on the customers, you know, leave that to management at your company. Let your service manager know, let the business owner know, like, hey, these are some frustrating things, and let them deal with those problems. So, I wanted to address the cleaning of other equipment on the roof. When it came to this equipment, you know, I was just literally called out for their beer walk-in. But then when I got there, I walked around and I'm like, dude, your walk-in freezer's down, your walk-in cooler's down, you've got AC issues. I just started going to town. Now, the customer didn't ask me to go through all that stuff, but I knew that they were going to call me back for that stuff. So it's like, I'm just going to take care of this. I had them create other work orders for each individual item because I like to invoice things separately. I don't like to bundle up invoices. So I had separate invoices for each item that was down. I did a quick rinse on the ACs. I did not go super thorough, but we did end up going back and going through those ACs. We gave them a list of problems and they had us go back and go through everything. Now, when it comes to the sight glasses, I get a lot of questions about this, okay? What do I mean by the sight glasses clear? All right, first and foremost, understand that the basic refrigeration cycle with an expansion valve, I've got a cutaway of an expansion valve right here, okay? The basic refrigeration cycle with an expansion valve, when you use an expansion valve, you have to have a clear sight glass or a solid column of liquid going to the expansion valve for it to work properly. You do not want to be feeding vapor to your expansion valve. You want liquid going to it. Now, understand something, that a sight glass is only a window into the system where it is installed. So in this situation, the sight glass was up at the liquid line receiver. Now, that's not the most ideal location for a sight glass, but in these situations, it's pretty practical to put it there. The best place for a sight glass would be literally at the inlet of the expansion valve right here, so that way you can be 100% sure that you have liquid going into that valve, okay? But I make that reference a lot. Oh, the sight glass is clear. Oh, the sight glass is clear. Understand something. I am not just simply looking at the sight glass and saying the refrigerant charge is good. What you guys don't see is that I'm listening, I'm looking, I'm feeling as I'm working on that system. And I'm noticing when I turn the condensing unit on, the sight glass flashes for a second, then I can see it fill up with liquid, okay? Sometimes it can be very difficult to distinguish between an empty sight glass and a full sight glass, because a completely empty sight glass oftentimes will have no bubbles, no anything in it, and it could be very misleading, okay? So in this situation, I was gauging how fast the box was coming down to temp, the cold suction line coming back, the fact that the sight glass looked to be clear, okay? And then I started noticing the temperature dropping fast. And then while I'm downstairs, I look at the expansion valves, because if an expansion valve typically is getting vapor refrigerant, you can see a funky frost pattern at the expansion valve oftentimes. And so, again, I'm looking at multiple things. But to you guys, it may just seem like, hey, he's just looking at the sight glass and moving on. That's not necessarily the case, okay? You can also judge by how equipment sounds, right? I already kind of covered that. But you can listen to the expansion valve feeding. Once you start working on enough equipment, you start to recognize things. And I can walk into a walk-in cooler that's not temping right, and you can hear the hissing of the expansion valve. And more than likely, it's going to be a low refrigerant charge issue. Now, sometimes it could be other things, but okay, so understand that I'm not just looking at the sight glass and saying it's good. Now, the next thing, do you use a sight glass, right? When you have an expansion valve system with a receiver, do you use a sight glass? Do you use superheat and subcooling to adjust the charge? What do you do to check the refrigerant charge on a refrigeration system with a receiver that has an expansion valve? You do not use superheat and subcooling, okay? Unless there's some weird OEM requirement. To get subcooling to like what people think they should have, right? There's some rules of thumbs, you want 10 degrees subcooling. If you were to try to get a receiver system all the way up to 10 degrees subcooling, you would massively, massively overcharge that system, okay? You will find some measurable subcooling on most systems. Now, on newer refrigeration systems that are AWEF compliant, oftentimes they will have an added subcooler, so the refrigeration circuit will go through the system, come out of the condenser, go into the receiver, and then it'll come out of the receiver, go back into the condenser for an added subcooling loop. Now, on those systems, you tend to see a higher than normal subcooling. They do that to get added subcooling, trying to make the system more efficient. That is pretty common. So on those new AWEF compliant systems, I have seen as much as 10 degrees subcooling measurable coming out of the subcooler. But that's not very common, especially on older systems. So you need to use the skills that you have in your head, and it's not just a one-stop, this is good, this is bad, whatever. But be very cautious about everybody that says you charge every system with superheat and subcooling, because that's not always accurate, okay? On a refrigeration system with an expansion valve, superheat is an afterthought. Okay, superheat is an adjustment to how this valve is feeding the evaporator, and you typically do that after your system is pretty much completely charged. Okay, then after the box is almost down to temperature, you would dial in the superheat on the expansion valve, little increment turns, getting it to dial in, but you shouldn't be having to like make huge adjustments. Okay, always be careful too when you're trying to adjust superheat. Always check the strainers before you do, you know, adjust a valve or something like that. But I just need to make sure that people understand, like, it's not always just a clear sight glass that I'm looking for. I'm looking at a lot of different things. But sometimes, again, when I'm making these videos, I'm not really going out there with a mission like I'm going to make a video today. I just happen to turn a camera on and you're hearing my thought process, okay? So there is more going on sometimes in my head that maybe I'm not verbalizing. But for the most part, you do need a clear sight glass, okay? You know, going to your expansion valve for the system to work right when you are working on a refrigeration system, again, that has a receiver and an expansion valve, okay? So be very cautious about people that say you just charged a subcooling. That's not 100% accurate, okay? You need to be very careful about that kind of stuff. There's other things, other elements in the system that it's maybe not just simply a clear sight glass. Like, for instance, if you have a head pressure control valve, this is an LAC valve, okay? If you have a head pressure control valve on the system, this requires extra refrigerant beyond just a clear sight glass. So oftentimes there's a calculation. If it's a tube and fin condenser, you can use the Sporlan 90-30-1 method to calculate the internal volume of the condenser. Therefore, you would know how much extra refrigerant you need to add for this head pressure control valve to properly work. If you don't have that, if you have a microchannel condenser, then you need to lean on the manufacturer, because there's not a very valid, accurate way to calculate the internal volume of that condenser that I have found yet. So oftentimes you'll just lean on the manufacturer and they'll say the maximum charge for this system is 14 pounds or whatever it may be. And then you just charge the system to that maximum charge, and you know that you would have enough refrigerant in the system if this head pressure control valve was to ever bypass, okay? Now I'm pulling up these cutaways that I have right here. Guys, I did these myself. I just had a couple expansion valves that were flare, and I started cutting. They're not perfect, but they do the trick to where you can actually visualize the inside. Head pressure control valve, same thing. Take the components out, cut it in a bandsaw, and then that way you have a better understanding of how these things work. Now, I do these because I show them to my employees. I take them to training classes, different things like that. I show them in videos. But yeah, I encourage everybody out there, start taking apart things, start cutting them open safely. That way you can understand the operation and how they work better. It's really important, okay? So I really appreciate you guys making it to the end of this video as usual. Your support is so awesome. If you haven't already, please consider checking out my website, hvacrvideos.com. We have merchandise available on there, shirts, hats, beanies, sweaters. Got the fall coming up. I know we're still in the smack dab of summer, but got plenty of sweaters and beanies. So check them out. Order one if you're interested. We'll get them shipped out ahead of time before the craziness starts for the wintertime. A couple other ways to support the channel if you're interested in doing so: PayPal, Patreon, YouTube channel memberships. There's links in the show notes. The easiest way to support the channel is literally watch the videos from beginning to end without skipping through anything. YouTube throws commercials in there. YouTube pays me. That's the easiest way, okay? But your support is awesome. Remember, TrueTechTools.com if you're interested in purchasing any tools. I have an affiliate link, big picture, one word. Get an 8% discount on most items, and I get a small commission from that. So now that I've done all the business side of things, I do really appreciate you, and we will catch you on the next one.